This series is perfect to have on before you pop out to lunch. Today, I'm particularly pleased to be joined by James Breeze, or Breezy as he's widely known. Our connection spans many years, beginning in Sydney back 17 years ago, and later in Singapore. In fact, Breezy to this day remembers and often speaks about, he tells me, the particular dinner party that he joined in Singapore on July 23rd, 2013. That's my notes, not his memory, that can remember that date. It's these shared experiences over the years that build such lasting connections. And given that long history, I just might recall a few details that others don't, like the name of his very first company back in 2007, but maybe we'll discuss that during this conversation. So this series is intended to be a 15-minute chats with some interesting people I've met over dinner. The dinners are always fun and sometimes useful, and for me, it's been a way over the years to get to know fabulous people who are always a little bit senior, a little bit fun, and a little bit smarter, brighter, shinier than most. Yes, we're diving into the murky and wonderful world of media, marketing, and ad tech, and how to get ripped off less. Welcome to today's conversation.
This episode is brought to you by jobsandadtech.com, the only jobs board dedicated to digital media and the ad tech industry. If you're hiring now, use promo code JWPOD, JWPOD, for a 10% discount on any package. Jobsandadtech.com, it's where ad techers go to find their next role.
James, good to catch up with you. Been a while.
James, it's been a long time.
I'd love to get stuck straight in. Let's stuck straight in. What's in the news at the moment that's caught your eye?
I think the thing that's on top of my mind at the moment is what's going on with AI. You know, people fear that their jobs are going to get stolen, that AI is going to take over the world, and I've been doing some thinking about that.
So what exactly is the thinking along the lines of? Because you telling me that my job's safe?
Well, yeah, if you use AI, it is. One of the guys who invented the platform that Google bought, which now runs their AI system, was asked, what do you think people are going to do when AI assistants and agents are, commonplace in not too distant future? And he said, they're going to play games and, have fun and enjoy themselves. And I'm thinking, that's quite limiting way of thinking about it. But what I think people will do is they'll start building better AIs for themselves. They'll be building better assistants for themselves. Well, that's certainly what I'll be doing. And then that got me thinking that if people are doing that from an unconscious perspective and they're not building a better version of themselves into that AI, then it's going to perpetuate for them a carbon copy of the rubbish that's already there. And then if you think about what that does within an organization, it's going to build worse versions of the same organization. And what happens then across the planet? We just perpetuate the rubbish that's going on at the moment, the politics that's going on, the crises in health, the negative marketing and all of this stuff. You just build out more of what's bad in the world. So my passion is to try to understand how can we help people to become more conscious so that the stuff that they're building into AI, whether they're the creators or whether they're the users, is making their lives better.
At the moment, I'm finding it very good as being my assistant, my AI assistant. So rather than redrafting and statements of work for clients, I've just got them all into the agent, my SOW agent, and then just say, it's this project, it's this time, these are the parameters, and it spits it out. And then all I have to do is proofread it and tweak a few things. So it's like having a junior assistant on hand, but don't tell my colleagues because I'm saving so much time.
Well, just take the long dashes out and you'll be fine. Okay, that's the
exactly. That is the giveaway.
I've done the same thing, and I've got people helping me using JSONs that I've written about myself. But I think maybe this gives a good context. I like to do plans for what's happening this year and 3 years and 5 years in the future. I like to kind of understand what's a good version of James Breeze and what are the identities that I want to live in the future, and what do I want to achieve, what's my purpose. So what I did was I wrote my manifesto and I put that into ChatGPT. I added that to my saved memories so that it thinks from the point of view that I want to be. I think that's pretty cool, right? Because thoughts are what create our reality. You know, if I think something, it usually happens. You know, if I think I'm fat, I'll just get fatter. If I think I can't lose weight, I'll just, you know, not be able to lose weight. You change that thinking, then you can change the way that the world responds to what you're thinking. And so I thought, well, I'll just stick that into ChatGPT.
Nice.
And it works.
It thinks in the right direction. It's got the right goals. It's got the right future for you. Nice one. I like it. So tell me what you're up to professionally at the moment. How are you helping people get ripped off less?
So I'm still doing the same research that I've been doing since 1999. Now we do it across 15 countries in Southeast Asia in local language with simultaneous translation, so that those who are trying to escape to Southeast Asia from the rest of the world are building things that people actually want to use. And they're helping those people have better lives, whether they're in businesses or whether they're consumers. You know, they're using some new product that, you know, is spun out of China or coming out of the US that wants to make it in Southeast Asia.
I'm going to stop for a sec. I'm going to stop you there for a sec, because when we met back in 2008, 9, you were leaving one company to set up a company that would help basically usability of washing machines and things like that. And then when we were in Singapore at the same time, you had the company that had eye tracking, and that was kind of helping people use websites better. It's all about the usability side of things.
That's right.
And actually, the first company wasn't called Breezability.
Breezable was the first one. No one ever knows.
So it's a progression. It's a natural progression you see all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, the first industry that I was working in was in digital, in user experience. Well, it wasn't called user experience when I started. It was a long time ago, 2001 or something. But that sort of progressed into, you know, what it is today. And UX research as a industry is not that great for consultants, because companies can do it themselves. AI can help them do it. So we've stopped focusing just on digital, and now, because of the eye tracking work that we've been doing, we've always been working across shopper research, across advertising research, across market research. So because we understand all of those things, it's very easy for us to help in that area. So as we sort of moved outside of just doing the digital work and doing any kind of research and doing that in any country, the way that we were able to find clients was when somebody says, well, I need to test with some people in Myanmar, I need to test with some people in Vietnam. So we can find those people. And then, of course, they need that facilitation to be done in the local language and then translation and all that sort of stuff. So now we can deliver those projects, and the market for us is global, and Southeast Asia is where we deploy that. So that's kind of where we're focusing. And then within that, we're using AI to make it more effective for our customers, which are governments or multinationals, so they don't get ripped off by the research spend, which may not necessarily tell them anything that they don't already know. If you think about classic quantitative surveys, you give people a list of questions that they need to respond to, strongly agree or strongly disagree, and they choose from those questions. When you do that, you're already putting those words in people's mouths. So if we can ask people an open-ended question, what do you think of this experience? And then they just tell us, then we're going to get a much more accurate approximation of what they believe in and what they experience, what they perceive, instead of, you know, just skewing all of the data based on whatever we think they should answer. And so now we can do that with AI at scale. We can deploy thousands of one-on-one, open-ended, qualitative interviews and then analyze the data automatically. It means that we're now getting much more detail about why people do what they do, how we can fix it, and, you know, what are the beliefs that we need to align with when we're talking to them in the marketing context, or what are the beliefs that they have which could identify a new product opportunity for them. And I don't believe that we could do that in a very a very accurate or valid way in the past, but AI has completely transformed that. So, we've got a lot of banks and telcos and global market research firms and FMCGs who are using this as a methodology. And it's great for us because it means that we can deliver cost-effective services in no time with less staff. So it's a really great opportunity.
Really interesting. And what are you doing with the kids research? When we spoke a few weeks ago, I was in a ski resort. I remember having a quick chat to you and on WhatsApp, and you were telling me about the kids research. Is it kids research?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're working with a professor, Gemma Carver, who's from the UK actually. She's a professor of neuroscience at NTU, the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. And it's actually her daughter came to us and said, look, I really don't think this TikTok is very healthy for me and my friends. They have these horrible slime pictures, they're half, and then somebody's talking rubbish on the other half. And the slime is like the AMSR. It's tweaking their interest and getting the good juices flowing for them so that they keep watching the rubbish. And she was just saying, like, this is terrible. So what we thought is we could do a second project with this AI interviewing tool. The first one we did with NTU was looking at people's intent to have kids, and what was it that people in Singapore, what stopped them from having kids, because there's an incredibly low birth rate at the moment. So that got the attention of the Prime Minister's office, which is really good. But then this new one, we're looking at, well, how do we understand what do kids believe in when it comes to social media? What do they believe that it's healthy for them? Are they having trouble? And then also, what do their parents think? Are their parents concerned? Is there a disconnect between them? Absolutely, there is. And like so many of these kids are literally addicted to social media. And they told us that. They told us that they cannot not use it. It's like 62% or something. We haven't actually released the results yet. And the reason you saw it was we were trying to get people to complete it, because we would love to get this sort of thing deployed globally. So the point of doing it was to raise the awareness, obviously, of what's going on with social media and to synchronize with what Trump was doing with TikTok, but also to make it really obvious to people how we can leverage new technology to get insights which you wouldn't normally get. Because if you send a kid a survey and if they fill it out at all, it's not very exciting or interesting, but they would just respond to the questions that the adults who wrote the questions thought were relevant to them, instead of just saying, how do you feel about social media? And then they'll say whatever they like. So we're not putting any words into their mouth.
Really interesting. I love how you're using today's tech to find solutions for the real world problems. It's very exciting. You mentioned Gemma. I met her at WPP Stream in 2013 when we were in Singapore, and talking of 2013, that was when we were doing the dinners, and you came to a dinner in town. You were saying earlier that you remember the restaurant.
I do, yeah. It's a little old church in Middle Road. I ended up living on that street for probably 3 or 4 years in total. Had an office there as well. So when I was there last year, I kept walking past that building, and I was thinking about when we all caught up, and actually met with Chris Pyle, a friend, last week. He's helping me with some AI stuff, and he was actually going to be the next question you've got for me is who's the person that you should interview next, and it's him. And you're like, well, I already am.
That's awesome. Well, you're always one step ahead. I'm going to ask you the high five, but it's a high four now because you've already answered the number 5. So the high five, your hero. In context of Ripped Off Less, who would you call your hero?
Well, you came up with the term, so you're kind of the hero, right? And I had to ask you what you were talking about, whether you were talking about consumers or whether you were talking about businesses. And if somebody gets ripped off and, they bought overpriced tickets for the Oasis concert, we're like, really, it's not my problem. I need to focus on myself. But if a business is not spending their money well, and that happens all the time, it really frustrates me because, particularly in market research, we just don't want to tell people what they already knew. So yeah, you're the inspiration there for Ripped Off Less. Only because I can't think of anything better.
You'll go far. Your best decision. What is your best decision?
Best decision, I think, was to start my own business back in 2007. You know, after we met, it's been a rough road, particularly because when I started the business, the stuff that I'm doing now didn't exist. So constantly reinventing the business and being in consulting, which we mainly are, is always challenging to find the next client and to get them to pay their bills. But we've managed to last for a very long time, and I've got some ideas to grow the business and not to have to rely on those agency consulting jobs, as I'm sure you understand. But starting the business was the best decision because it's given me the flexibility to run the business across Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand, and to live wherever I need to live.
Worst decision?
If you're talking about business, the worst decision is not to fire a staff when you know that they're not delivering from a consulting perspective, because that's very, very expensive.
Fair cop. Funniest moment?
I think the funnest moment that I've had would probably be going to Antarctica and just seeing nature in its pure joy, and there's just nothing there, and that will always stick with me.
Nice. James, really lovely to catch up with you. I'm not used to calling you James. I always call you Breezy. Lovely to catch up with you. And I'm going to stop the recording there. Thank you.